Newsflash, douchebags! I like making thought-provoking videos that create conversation, dialogue, and the opportunity for you guys to voice your opinions in the comments section, and today is no different. Let's get one thing straight, pulling inspiration from your competitors is not new. It exists in all areas of life, whether it be sport, business, and even socially as well. When it's done with good intentions, this can lead to potentially positive and more often than not beneficial outcomes. When the original Need for Speed Payback trailer alongside the footage from E3 2017 was released to the world, there were more than a fair share of people who spotted very quickly that various elements of the game seem to have been ideas borrowed from Forza Horizon 3 and to a much greater extent, The Crew. So here's what I'm gonna do. Based on everything we know right up until the present day, I want to explore 3 key areas where I feel Ivory Tower's The Crew has helped Ghost Games' Need for Speed Payback in becoming this year's must-have title. Starting off with the open world map. In The Crew 1, players have been given a very big map. In fact, that's an understatement, it's bloody massive. It presents the scaled down version of the United States. 13 big cities have been reproduced, as well as some of the recognisable places outside of them. The distance between New York and LA at the other end of the map is 120 kilometers, and to cover that distance it will take anything up to 90 minutes depending on the whip you pick. The map has been divided into 5 regions: Midwest, East Coast, the South, Mountain States, and the West Coast. Now there are 2 reasons as to why the open world was so great in The Crew. The first being the sheer size and vastness, as I've just talked about. The second being the huge variances of surface and terrain types. Tarmac, off-road, marshlands, forestation, salt flats, mountainous regions, all of which you can explore in free roam, giving masses of variety and plenty of freedom with very few invisible walls to block you on your excursions. Now look, I'm going to be controversial here because I'm going to go on record as saying that The Crew 1 is arguably the best map of any world racer, bar none. No, listen, don't get me wrong. From a visual standpoint and maybe in terms of elevation changes, Forza Horizon 3 is most definitely the best looking. But as Slaptrain said in a recent video, there's a bit too much off-roading in that game. It kind of feels a little unbalanced, and I must say I have to agree with him. So, how has this approach helped improve Need for Speed Payback? I've been playing Need for Speed since Underground 1. Now, I am very aware that to a small extent you can explore a bit of the open world whilst free roaming in Need for Speed Rivals and Need for Speed The Run, but that is mainly with the aid of glitches. Those games were not built from the ground up to facilitate this. Need for Speed 2015 pretty much followed the norm upon which the franchise is known for, which is a large city and lots of road to explore, but nothing in the way of terrain or surface changes on a large scale, such as full off-roading, almost making the whole city feel like an extremely large circuit, but of course with various routes, or routes if you're American. Looking at Payback and the release footage, we can clearly see they have adopted a new approach here, as we can see cars going off-road into areas of sand, dust, dirt and gravel. What's more is that from what I understand, this edition is not locked down to special events. As the devs have said, you can free roam into these areas to your heart's content. Now, I doubt you'll have the snowy mountains and the variety to match The Crew, but I must stress this is totally okay, as the main thing an open world racer should have is freedom for you, the player, to explore and discover. Based on the research I've done, I can only assume that Ghost have realised that by going down this path, it further expands the creative possibilities within the game itself, and a large reason for this is down to the influence of in-game maps of games like The Crew. Let's talk about cars, more specifically car specs. The Crew replaced standard MMO classes with 5 different specs, but crucially it never asked you to stick with just one. Those of you that played the original will know that as you gain these specs throughout the game, you'll be able to swap between them as often as you like to find the gameplay style that suits you or as the required prerequisite for the event class you've entered. Whether you're all about technical vehicles or down and dirty off-roaders, you'll feel at home at the crew. As you go from major city to major city throughout the campaign, the specs you gather will open up new styles and areas of the game for you to explore. No type of vehicle was ever obsolete. You always had opportunities to use your preferred spec and upgrade it. Each mission had a different spec associated with it. Now, from what I remember, each spec had its own very different style of driving, allowing you to find your own balance based on your playstyle. Now, the 5 different specs in the crew were Street, which was a versatile jack of all trades and probably the spec most relatable to the average person. Dirt, perfect for fans of rally racing and lets you take your exploration off the streets. Perf, similar to the Street in that it's road focused but with substantially more power and notoriously more difficult to handle, it required a greater degree of accuracy. Raid, extremely aggressive. These are multi-terrain beaters. From steep mountains to deep forestation, you name it, the raid vehicles could beat it. And last but not least, Circuit. This is the most technical type of vehicle, built for smooth tracks and incredible speed. So again, how has this helped Need for Speed Payback? From what I remember, Need for Speed as a franchise has remained pretty consistent in that cars may be categorized in such types as muscle, tuner, exotics, etc. But essentially, they were predominantly the same and that they were all built for the road only. This is a formula they have used across 20 years worth of games. They did slightly deviate from that in Pro Street and Shift, where only certain cars could be used for certain events, but for the most part these variances were few and far between in comparison to the crew, and they were all still road-based vehicles. This year, Need for Speed Payback breaks that long tradition by having what they refer to as car classes. I'm going to read the description of how it works from the official game website, so pay attention. The cars in Need for Speed Payback are broken down into 5 unique classes, so when you drive up to the starting line of an event, you better be sure you're behind the wheel of the right class of car. Car class is determined at point of purchase, however not all cars can be used in every class. The freedom to choose from each of the 5 classes is reserved specifically for the derelicts, whereas most cars will have 2 to 3 classes to select from. Now that's actually pretty similar to the crew, because in the crew you did have certain cars that qualified for more than one class. Now I'm not sure if it's just me, but that does sound somewhat familiar, wouldn't you agree? Let's take a detailed look at the 5 classes available in Need for Speed Payback, starting with Race, the staple for any car collection, and in order to compete within the street racing events of Need for Speed Payback, you're going to want to have a number of these stored in your garages. Some of the best at cornering, and with a solid straight line speed, cars in this class can be seen as balanced all-rounders. Off-road, the ability to maintain speed whilst driving off-road, coupled with stability in the air and good recovery on landing, make these the go-to car class for any off-road based activity. Drag, there's nothing quite like going insanely fast in a straight line, and that's where drag cars come into play. If your event requires cornering, look elsewhere. Drift, while not as fast in a straight line or when taking a standard turn as the race class, drift cars still have the ability to put out some decent speeds. Where they truly shine is sweeping mountain roads, where you're going to want to make a series of alternating turns in quick successions, i.e. transitions. And finally, runner. Now every now and then you'll find yourself in need of a car for a special type of job. That's where runner class comes into play. When picking a car of the runner class, you'll notice a few visual differences: subtle paint jobs, black rims, tinted windows, lowered ride height, wide track width, and the absence of a license plate. Agile, precise, good landing stability, and great at getting away from the cops. So as you can see, a massive variation, plenty of variety in the different classes or specs available. And looking at it again, I have to say, it's fairly obvious where the influences have come from. Okay, so we've covered car classes. I think that's a perfect segue into the final part. Car parts. In the Crew 1, the cars that you bought at the dealerships were mass-produced versions. To participate in any races, you had to buy a starting kit. They had one of the 5 specifications: street, off-road, performance, racing or circuit, along with the additions from the Wild Run expansion, which were drift, monster, and I can't remember the other one, drag, that was it. Anyway, apart from that, each starting kit had a certain level, 10, 20, 30 or 40. The individual levels of the starting kits would unlock as you progressed in yours. Level 40 meant that all of the brown car parts of level 40 are installed. Later, you can upgrade parts in your car by completing storyline missions and skill tests. The level of a given part depended on the mission level and the bonus depended on the score you attained. The great thing was you didn't need to pay for the parts that you won on a given car, but if you won them on a specific car and you wanted them installed on another one, you need to pay for that. So let's just remind ourselves of the individual parts that make up the system within the Crew. Weight reduction, providing high bonus to acceleration and braking and slightly decreases the bonus grip. Differential, provides a bonus to grip, acceleration and braking. Suspension, improves on grip as well as braking and acceleration. Brakes, provides a high bonus to braking. Tyres, providing a bonus to grip and high bonus to braking and acceleration. Rotor, improves on acceleration and considerably raises top speed. Transmission, provides a high bonus to top speed and acceleration. Cycle part, provides bonus to acceleration and considerably increases top speed. Injection, increases top speed and provides a bonus to acceleration. Injection differential, provides a bonus to acceleration and raises top speed. And exhaust system, which also increases acceleration and top speed. So when you break it down, there is a lot of parts there, but a lot of them seem to pretty much do the same thing to an extent. But obviously the percentage increases do differ from part to part, even if they do on the surface of things offer the same thing. Now, parts that you don't need can be recycled into cash, and when you reach a certain point, you will encounter the smart loot system, which is almost like a randomly drawn part which comes from a loot including visual parts, which pissed me off, such as stickers and vinyls. Now there's also another part to this called perks. In the Crew, you can use perks to improve your car, gain more XP and money, get discount on cars and upgrades, as well as driving assists and much more. The higher your level, the more you can spend, and those perks you basically unlock through progressing in the actual story mission. Right, so how has this improved Need for Speed Payback? Let's take a look, shall we? Performance parts in Need for Speed Payback provide you with some of the deepest and most strategic choices seen in a Need for Speed game to date. Any newly purchased car will come with a selection of stock parts already applied to it, but to compete with the best, you're going to want to apply some upgrades. Parts come in 6 categories: block, head, turbo, exhaust, ECU and transmission. And you'll be wanting upgrades across the board to ensure you remain competitive. There are many ways to acquire parts, such as winning events, which will award parts at random. You will also be able to purchase items through the parts shop ever-changing stock. There's also the targeted role system, which allows for a little more choice in terms of your chosen part, but comes at the expense of a few of your unwanted parts, which need to be recycled. The level of your parts is one of the most important factors when it comes to upgrading your performance. The higher the level, the more performance you're going to get. Once again, the similarities as you're starting to see. The level of your parts also help determine the tier of your car. If you've got a car with a set of level 1 parts applied to it, it will be tier 1.0. Equip another car with level 18, which is the maximum level parts, and the tier will increase to 3.99. Take your performance further by equipping parts with associated perks. Perks provide an additional bonus to many of your car's key performance areas such as top speed, acceleration, nitros, air and braking. Get lucky and find parts with multiple perks to really push your performance to the next level. Once again, that was taken directly from the Need for Speed Payback game website. So, 3 separate areas of Need for Speed Payback, which from what I can see here have massively been influenced by the crew. They've taken the ideas and in some aspects you could say they've actually built upon them. I guess it's a little bit too early to say that because we haven't really got our hands on the game to really play it at length, but nevertheless, as I mentioned at the very beginning, this is not a bad thing. This is not a video to bash Payback whatsoever, because as I said, if you take an existing idea which is extremely good and you build upon it, then at the end of the day there's only one winner, and that's you, the gamer, and that's it. So let me know in the comments, guys, what do you think of my case study? Do you agree? Do you think it's a good idea to take influences from your rivals? Do you think Need for Speed have gone down the right path with these additional game elements? Do you see the crew as perhaps maybe even a trendsetter and maybe even changing the course upon which racing games are developed moving forward? I'm really interested in knowing your thoughts, so drop those below in the comments section. Also, please don't forget to hit that like button to raise the awareness of this video so we can get as many people involved in the debate as possible. As I mentioned at the start, I've got quite a few other discussion videos that I've put out, so if it's your first time around here, I wish you a warm welcome and I encourage you to watch those as well. They're pretty good. Don't forget to check out the AutoBOURNE magazine for all your latest car reviews and head-to-head showdowns. And also, if you were a fan of Need for Speed Underground 2, I've actually got a let's play that I've been playing on that recently. I need to upload some more videos on that actually. Anyway, in the meantime, take it easy. Peace. Do you like car reviews? Do you check out power tests? Are you a fan of head-to-head showdowns? How about having them all tied together in one convenient place? Welcome to the AutoBOURNE magazine, your one-stop shop for all of the above, presented on a weekly basis with quality content, clean-cut commentary and cars to suit everyone's pocket. What happened when the 370Z went up against the original 240? Was the American muscle car misunderstood by the British? Should you buy the brilliantly stupid John Cooper Works Mini? All questions and more will be answered as part of the AutoBOURNE magazine. Check it out now.